Now, this right here is going to be a very controversial topic. I know it's going to be a controversial topic because people do not fuck with what I'm about to say. But I do believe in mono-poly relationships when it comes to dom-sub dynamics. Now, why do I say that? Well, because when I talk about dom-sub dynamics, I'm not talking about BDSM play. I'm talking about an actual relationship dynamic that works 24/7. Something that tends to happen is this. You have to see your sex game as a drug, right? The feeling that you're giving a woman is a drug. It's dopamine, right? When you make her feel good, that is a dopamine hit, right? Now, if you are in a prematurely integrated situation, that woman has built a tolerance to your masculine energy. She's built a tolerance to your sexual energy, right? So that means that the effect that you have on her is going to be lower than probably what it would be for other women because they haven't built a tolerance to it. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to implement pleasure denial to rebuild her tolerance, to lessen her tolerance, so that when you come back to it, she's going to have the ability to feel like it's brand new again, or at least feel more excited about it. One way I look at dom-sub dynamics is kind of like this. When you're dom, you have more sex game or more sexual experience or more sexual energy than the partner that you're with, right? And when you're in this position, let's say if you're prematurely integrated, chances are you got with the woman because you didn't think she was that sexual, which may or may not be true. This will weed out how true it is. So I'll explain what I mean. Let's say a woman she convinces you that she's sexually satisfied with you. Your dick is enough for her. She wants a monogamous relationship. Okay, cool. But you aren't doing all the things I want you to do sexually. We aren't having sex as often as I like. We aren't having sex as kinky as I like, right? Now, in that domain, your needs aren't being met. But if she agrees that you meet her needs sexually, and you're vocal and you're honest about the fact that your needs aren't met, then you giving the excess of your sexual energy to someone else does not take food out of their mouth. Two people at a table eating together. That doesn't mean that they have to eat the same amount of stuff. Let's say that you and this woman go on a picnic. When you go on the picnic, you bring some food, she brings some food. You give her enough food that satisfies her hunger, right? She brings something that's not enough for you, but the thought counted. You know that she's trying, or at least you feel like she's trying. So you set this precedent. You say, okay, cool. I'm going to eat this. I'm bringing enough to fill your needs. You got more food, right? Because you cooked a lot. That's how much your sexual energy is. Or you cook too much food and she won't be able to eat it all. So you can take the leftover food and your leftover appetite, and you can go elsewhere and have another picnic, and she's going to be satisfied. Now it's time for you to get the rest of your satisfaction. Now, this works on both an ego gratification side, and it also works on pure sexual needs side. Now, a lot of people, they're not going to fuck with this because they think everything should be equal. It's all about symmetry. I believe in polarity, not symmetry. And this isn't even about being sexist, But if someone says I'm sexist, that's fine. I'm not going to argue with them. But what I will say is this. A woman can be a dominant. A woman can be a dominant. See, my take on it is this. A dominant is the primary giver of pleasure, the primary receiver of ego gratification, the secondary receiver of pleasure, and the secondary giver of ego gratification. What does this mean? What this means is, as a dominant, you set your standards. Now, when we're talking about integration, when you're prematurely integrated, something that can often happen is this. You may not have had as much time, or this doesn't fill your cup enough, right? Doesn't fill your cup enough for you to maintain the dominant masculine energy that you need to. You should be able to do it on your own. You gain enough experience, then you may be able to sustain that even if she isn't necessarily up to par as far as the energy that she's putting in and the energy she has available. Now, this is how a mono-poly relationship works from dom-sub dynamics. If, while going through this process, her sexual energy increases, she starts getting open to more things that you're into, she starts wanting to have sex more often, One, having other women will make you more attractive to her. It might hurt her ego if she's still on the masculine tip, but if she's very feminine and submissive, knowing that other women find you attractive is going to make you more attractive. Now, if her sexual energy rises and it increases and it gets closer to yours, to the extent that it gets closer to yours, you cut out dealing with other women because that's your primary partner. You're not dealing with women in a way that takes food out of her mouth. Likewise, if a woman is a dominant, she's not dealing with other men in a way that takes food out of your mouth. Understand what I'm saying? Because as a submissive, your role is to let your inhibitions go. Your role is to let your inhibitions go and then to go into subspace, to go into a space where you lose control, you give up control, and then you feel that rush, that wave of emotions and pleasure all over you. Now, something that can happen is this. Let's say you're in the process of increasing a woman's sexual energy. When you're going through this process, when men who are in her vicinity, when her sexual energy increases, if she's sexually attracted to them and they are within her orbit, they will become more sexually attractive to her. And she may either that, or she may begin to feel as if it's unfair, right? And that's the social programming popping up. That one, that's social programming, and two, that's ignorance of how sexual energy works. Sexual energy is not a faucet. It can't be turned off or turned on, and that's, where the K zagging on that. I don't know if he agrees with this at this point, maybe not, but most people don't talk about prematurely integrated relationships like I do. So when we're looking at things from this perspective, you're not dealing with other women in a way that takes food out of her mouth. If she's already not being fully sexually available to you in a way that meets your needs, her fucking with someone else can take food out of your mouth. Also, once her sexual energy starts to open up, if she's dealing with other men during that period of time, then something that can happen is before you're integrated to where the more emotionally close you are to her, the better that makes the sex, then her fucking with someone else can expose her to NRE and what I call a false green light of sexual chemistry. So let's say she's fucking with you. She wants a monogamous relationship. You're fucking with other people. She fucks with somebody else while her sexual energy is rising. She doesn't know how to be a no-limit soldier with other men yet, which is if you're the dominant and you're having that type of dynamic and you're the primary partner, then if she fucks with other men, it needs to be out of a surplus of her sexual energy or out of your not being available. And in those particular types of situations, she needs to know how to separate sex from emotions. Some women know how to separate sex from emotions, some don't. But when you're trying to integrate, you have to separate sex from emotions a little bit yourself so that the pure sexual attraction, the pure sexual dynamic can be increased. As that pure sexual dynamic is increased, when it gets to a high enough point, then you can add sex to emotions and that be something that increases the sex. But until her sexual desire and attraction to you is at a certain point, then when you invest in her emotionally, it's transactional for sex. Understand what I'm saying? So let's say we're looking at it from my scale of sexual attraction, which is from 5 to 10. Let's say you being emotional and emotionally invested is something that drops her view of your masculinity down a point or two. So if you are at a 7 on a scale of her sexual attraction to you on a pure basis, and then you become too emotionally invested and you drop a point or two, now you're going down to a 1 or a 5. You're going down to a 6 or a 5. A 6 means you have to pursue her on end to have sexual access to her. So it's going to feel like pressure for you to want to have sex with her without taking her out first. 5. If you get dropped down to a 5, then she's going to need you to be a financial provider and to make sex expressly transactional in order for her to deal with you. Right? Now, let's say it's an 8 or a 9. If it's an 8 or a 9 and you drop down 1 point or 2 points, right? If you drop 1 point from a 9, now you're at an 8. When you're at an 8, when you're emotionally invested in a woman, as far as the scale of sexual attraction, now you're at a place where she can be in love with you. And you can be mutually emotionally invested in one another and still maintain the situation. So these are some concepts that are difficult for people to understand. Like, if you're starting off with biology first, you can be a dom. She's already fucking with other guys, so it's cool. You just judge the situation off of how she treats you when she's around you and nothing else. But when you're prematurely integrated, you're already giving a woman a pass. You're already giving her a pass. If she's giving that sexual energy to someone else, then she is voiding that pass. Right? So it's not about fair. It's about polarity. Another aspect of Dom sub dynamics when it comes to monopoly relationships, one penis policies, and other things of the like, one Dom policies, it works kind of like this. You need to be able to build up her or take away her tolerance by giving her a little inconsistency sexually. That sounds counterintuitive. If you want her to be more sexual, why would you have sex with her less? Well, part of the reason why is this. You want to turn her on, and she needs to spend time being turned on without getting what she wants. Because when the moment she gets turned on, or is all pretty much kind of willing to have sex a little bit, you give it to her, she's not even going to be fully sexually responsive. When you turn her on and let her experience being turned on, not getting exactly what she wants, directly when she wants it, then it creates time for desire to build up. It creates time for tension to build up. You don't have enough sexual tension in your relationship. That's why it's prematurely integrated in the first place. So when you're moving in this particular way, one thing to understand is that sometimes you have to do pleasure denial. And if you're doing pleasure denial with a woman who's prematurely integrated and her social programming is too strong, and then she says, or you're in an open situation, and then she goes fuck somebody else. If you're putting her on pleasure denial and she goes fuck somebody else, then what may happen is that the energy that she was building up sexually for you, which is the reason why you had her on pleasure denial, will be given to someone else. Which means that when she comes back around, her desire may not be as high. It may get turned up some more if she's truly polyamorous. But this is a woman who claims she wants a monogamous relationship with you. Now, when she comes back around, her sexual energy may not be as high. Another thing that'll happen is daddy versus father. You know, when you're prematurely integrated and you're trying to integrate a woman, what you have to be able to do is have those deep conversations, those vulnerable conversations that are going to be uncomfortable, because she's going to tell you things sexually about herself that, based off of your previous mindset about who she was as a person sexually, it's wrong. It's not truly who she is. And she may not have been open to it herself at the time, but now you have to open her up to it so that she has a higher capacity